Another step in the science and engineering process that we will be using is to plan and carry out our investigations. A data sheet is a document where we record pieces of information on the subject we're studying. On the far left of your data sheet, at the very top, you should see the word parameter. A parameter is a characteristic or feature that can be measured, things that often change over time. It's important for scientists to take notes and document things like the date and current weather conditions, so that later other scientists can use this data to draw conclusions based on trends observed during similar conditions. Do you think the results from the tests we take on a hot day in August will be the same as the tests we take on a cold day in February? If you said no, you're on the right track. Air temperature and weather conditions will most likely affect the results of our water samples. Do you think changing the location could affect the results? Units of measurement are also important. When another scientist looks at your data, they need to know what unit of measurement was used so they can make an accurate comparison. Notice, we have degrees Fahrenheit under our air temperature and degrees Celsius for water temperature. That's because we use degrees Fahrenheit most often in the United States. But all over the world, scientists use degrees Celsius, so that's what we will use for our water temperature test today. Dissolved oxygen is also measured in parts per million, and turbidity is measured in JTU. That stands for Jackson Turbidity Units. It's important to include units of measurement, so another scientist or you can replicate your experiment and achieve accurate comparisons. So on your data sheet, under Site 1, because this is the first time that you are testing this water source, you are going to fill out the date, the location of where you got your water, and the current air temperature. It's important for scientists to check their equipment as well before they go out in the field or start an experiment. Can you imagine if you got on a boat all the way in the middle of the river and realized you'd forgotten something? That's a huge waste of your time. So we're going to check our equipment and make sure that we have everything and that it works correctly. This is your beaker. Sometimes it's made out of glass, but the shape of this science equipment is what makes it called a beaker. On the outside of your beaker, there is a black strip with numbers on it. This is your thermometer, and it's what we will use to test our water temperature. If you take your finger and you put it on one of the colored numbers and you rub it, you should see it change color because it's reacting to your body heat. Also, in your beaker, if you take your lid off and look in on the inside, there is a black and white circle. This is called a Secchi disc. This Secchi disc is how we will measure our turbidity, which has to do with the clarity of the water. It's a really important piece of science equipment, but it's very simple. Also on your beaker, you should have a dotted fill line. When we fill up our beaker full of water, we will fill it up till it's approximately at the fill line, and then we'll put the lid back on so we can continue the rest of our tests. Also, we have a glass vial. This glass vial is for our dissolved oxygen test. If you take the top off of your vial, you should see these rings on the opening right here. This is called the neck. When I give you instructions, I will tell you to hold it by the neck, and that's how we'll do our tests, holding it by the neck. You should also have a plastic test tube. This plastic test tube is for our pH test. On the outside of our test tube, there is numbers and letters. We'll be using the 10 milliliter mark to do our pH test, so make sure you see the 10 milliliter mark on your test tube. You also should have a comparison card. You can't finish filling out your data sheet if you don't have a comparison card, so it's important to have one with you. And finally, you should have 2 foil packets. There is a double bubble foil packet and a single bubble. This double bubble foil packet is for our dissolved oxygen test. Both of these chemical tablets will go into the vial. Also, the single bubble packet is for our pH test, and this tablet will go into the test tube. Now that we've checked our equipment and we have everything, we can start our first test.